Hello and welcome back to another Daryl Dixon The Book of Carol video, and today I'll be ranking all 6 episodes from worst to best. And this was pretty easy because each episode is a drastically different quality and it is very clear what episodes are bad in my opinion and what episodes are good. So let's jump right into this with the worst episode, number 6, and it is episode 4. I know a lot of people really like this episode. I've seen some people say this is their favourite episode, but for me personally, I think this episode is trash. And episode 6 completely wastes Isabel, kills her in the first few minutes. I dislike Daryl's reaction to the death. I think they rush through the attack of the nest. All the epic build-up of the previous episode completely ruined. And then they're like, back to status quo, Daryl and Carol. And then they waste half the episode at this small French village with an old couple. It is a really boring episode and a really disappointing and poorly written episode at times. And number 5 is episode 6. This might be controversial again because I've seen a lot of people say they really like this episode, but this episode is not worth the hype. Normal Reader spent ages hyping up this episode saying it's the best episode of The Walking Dead years, and it's mid. It's an okay episode. The first 20 minutes of this episode are really good. The intensity, the get Laurent on the plane, get him out of France is absolutely amazing. It's just the back half of this episode really does let this episode down, and it leaves you desiring more, but not in a good way. This episode is very lackluster, and is a very bad finale for a season. This episode really feels like just another episode, and I do not like the front-loaded way this episode works, with everything you care about being at the front, and the rest of the episode is just set up for season 3. It is a very boring episode at times, but it is also a very energetic and very exciting episode at times. It's just all over the place. And number 4 is episode 1, and this is a really interesting episode. It is almost completely Carol focused, and I enjoy that because we need to understand Carol. We need to spend time with her to understand how she gets to France. And this episode is very well paced. It just leaves you desiring a little with the Daryl side. You come back to Daryl Dixon season 2 because you enjoyed Daryl Dixon season 1. To not see Daryl Dixon in the pilot of season 2, it's a little disappointing in that aspect. Maybe they had a prolonged episode, could have worked. This episode is a good opener to this story. However, it could have been better. You could have cleaned up the writing a little. You could have explained the Carol's feelings coming back a little more. So there are some issues here and some plot holes here and there. But outside of that, it's still a fun time. Now, number 3 is episode 5. And I really do enjoy this episode. This episode has so much going for it. You have Daryl and Carol back on peak form. I didn't like him in episode 4, but episode 5, they really work well together. This has some amazing action scenes. I really like the variant Walker scene in the car, the battle in the catacombs. And this episode is back in Paris, which is amazing to look at. Carol and Daryl work great, and I like how they separate them again so they can go off and do their own stories. Carol is dealing with the, do I tell Ash about my lies? And Daryl is dealing with, we lost Isabel and now Laurent doesn't want to come with me back to America. It's a very interesting episode. It has very little flaws. I can't really say, oh, it's a shame this happened, it's a shame this happened. It is very good. The one biggest nitpick I would have to say would be that they kill off the villain and then change the villain yet again. But they did that in episode 4 and they do it again in episode 5, which is really annoying to happen twice back to back. But this is just a really great episode. Number 2 is episode 2. And some people might not even rank this as high, but episode 2 for me, I really enjoyed. The stopping Greenland for Carol is really interesting. Even though it amounts to filler, I really enjoyed seeing how another country dealt with it and seeing this very sinister side of people. It was really interesting how it all slowly unfolded with Carol. The Daryl side and having the little reveal that Laurent is not missing and actually you have Lu Sang, who's the now villain. Absolutely amazing. It does kind of beat you over the head and it does feel like the writing treats you like you're a bit stupid at times. I would say this episode has a great start, but it peters out at the end. And a lot of episodes in this season have that issue where most of the episode is amazing. It's just the endings of each episode really do suck, except for one. And that's number 1, episode 3. And this is my personal favourite episode in Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, because they do so much. I really enjoy pairing Madame Genet and Carol, two very smart women, and they're playing 4D chess with each other. Carol's trying to figure out where Daryl is and trying to outsmart Madame Genet, but Madame Genet is a very intelligent woman and actually outsmarts her. Even though her whole plot with Carol is just set off episode 4, it is phenomenal. And over to the Daryl side, we get Daryl versus the Nest and Lu Sang really taking on that role as a villain. This episode with Daryl is absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoy the whole Daryl fighting everyone in the Nest, and they have this amazing one shot of Daryl going through this entire room killing everyone. It is so well done, so well choreographed, and that's my favourite scene in the entirety of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol. That scene right there is in this episode, and it is absolutely phenomenal. This episode is the only episode as well to not have the issue of terrible pace at the end. Each episode has this pacing issue, but this episode is just absolutely amazing from start to finish and deserves to be number 1 in my opinion. And this is just my list, so please tell me down below, what are your rankings of all 6 episodes? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I'd like to know all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. So that's it for me today, so goodbye and thank you for watching.